You really think George is smart enough to kill you and get away with it?
Yeah, yeah, no.
Get All right. I'm here with Tiffany Kim Stevens, and we're talking about Trigger Happy. This was an insane movie. I watched it last night, and my mouth kept dropping. All these crazy things that happen in the film. I mean, it's just fantastic. So great job on this movie.
Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Yeah, it's pretty uncanny and pretty weird and wacky and culty in a way.
I think we need more films like this, seriously, because there's always these serious films, but I miss those type of like campy type films, like, and it reminded me of Throw Mama from the Train in a way, because it's kind of a similar premise. And so my first question is, I know you came up with the story with the screenwriter. How did it come about? Where did this all begin?
The Given that this was my first feature, I knew that I needed to have it be focused on the first people that I had ever met, which are my parents. Because naturally, I just took inspiration from two really wacky adults. And really, what it was is that I come from a very traditional gendered house where my dad is the man of the house and my mom is the mom of the house, like the woman of the house. And I really wanted to be able to give them each a different gendered voice. So I wanted to give my father a feminine voice and my mother a masculine voice, which is how George and Annie kind of came into play. So Annie is actually my dad and George is my mom. And that was the seed of the idea, the nugget of the idea. And then Daniel, being the incredible screenwriter that he is, took those seeds and then made them the entertaining, wacky characters that they are now today.
Yeah, I mean, I really love the fact that it's also like Annie wants to kill George, because we get what's interesting is George is physically the one doing it, but we get Annie's inner voice, like we get her inner mind as we see her like stabbing George, although or stabbing whoever just to get ahead. And I feel like that's something different. Like you don't see anything like that. You usually just get the, oh well, he's gonna try to kill her for the life insurance, and but you don't realize that she's got a trick up her sleeve as well. Like she wants to get rid of him in some way as well, because let's just face it, he's not exactly being the bread, like you called it. He's not exactly the breadwinner. She's gonna be this. She wants to be this actress. So I find that's what I found fascinating, that we get to see her in her head while he's doing all the physical work.
Yeah, I'm really glad you picked up on that because, yes, even though he is physically trying to execute what's in her brain, she makes all the money. She cleans the house. She's cutting up the vegetables. She is really carrying the entire weight of the family in the Decker home. And all these intrusive, repressed thoughts are really valid, at least in this world. I don't condone murder, but in this world, they are valid. And to have her get to that point where her pure OCD is like at this like maximum capacity, because she loves vacuums, hence the vacuum in the background here, and she has like vacuum art. The idea was that the visual representation of like a clean house and vacuums all around is to juxtapose what's and suppress what's actually going on in her mind, which are really dirty, disgusting, nasty thoughts. So yes, and it's also like visually fun, and it adds that like visual dynamism and that entertainment value of like, yeah, let's have some blood, let's have some knives, let's really play with the aspect of prosthetics and stunts too.
Yeah, and I also like the dynamic between Gemma and Mikey. Like, Gemma is the total serial cheater here, and and Mikey, he's like George. He's practically in ways he is like George, and seeing Gemma and Annie doing that little exercise thing in the beginning, I was just cracking up at that, because I'm like, you just see them together and they're like, oh, these two are meant to be trouble. They're gonna, there's so I saw that, I'm like, they're gonna be trouble. And then realizing what Gemma really is and the stuff she's hiding in her desk at work and all that, it's just maddening. And I gotta say though, kudos has to go to Christina for that role, for playing Gemma. She did such a fantastic job playing that role. And I think she's gonna be a breakout. I'd love to see more of her, the way she did things here.
Yeah, Christina is incredible. I mean, she has the acting chops. One thing, she's been on the project since day one, all the way from our proof of concept to now. And one thing that I knew going into this with her was that, she comes from a multicam sitcom background, being on all that, and then now doing, sort of like incredible being a comedic actress. So not only did she understand multicam sitcom styled comedy, she also understands physical comedy and now can really add in the nuance of the drama but have that comedic undertone. So she was always so perfect for the role. And I'm glad you said, oh my God, I knew they were trouble, because that's really what that disco aerobic scene was. It's like this happy, like, but then you see it in their eyes. They're like, they are crazy.
Yeah, it's so funny. So basically, like you say, the film is in a way about two crazy women, and they're like pretty much submissive husbands in a way, because they if you like you said, the males are the feminines here, so they're kind of like it's submissive, and they're the more dominant, um, gender in this case. But one thing I really found fascinating was the fact that in this movie there is a law saying without fire guns you can't have health insurance. Where did that idea come from? Because that is mind-blowingly like shocking when you like that's gonna be something people need to like if they see this, like you guys are gonna have to realize this is not just about the madness between these two couples in a way, but it's also about this little law that happens. How did that come about?
So the idea for that came about, well, when we wrote the script, which was around 2019 up until 2020, we really wanted to focus on America as a microcosm of society and culture. And obviously, America is such a huge country, and there's so many different facets and perspectives, obviously. And we really, more than anything, wanted to create a world that was purple, not Republican, not Democratic, a little bit of both. And on the one hand, you had a lot of Democrats going like, I'm anti-gun, let's get rid of the guns. And then on the other hand, we had a lot of, sorry, on the one hand, we had Republicans that were like, let's keep our guns. Let's keep our guns. We want to keep our guns. And then on the other hand, we had Democrats who were like, well, we want good health insurance. We need to take care of our citizens. So I figured, okay, why don't we just give the world a little bit of both? Like if you have a firearm, you get free health insurance paid for by the government. So let's create a world that's purple and a little bit, more nuanced and gray. And then, the pendulum swinging in one direction or the other, which was fun to explore.
It was,
Yeah.
especially after Annie has the skydiving accident and George gets the call and he's like, it's going to cost you $200,000 because he's like, are you serious right now? Like, I'm trying to get the health insurance. Like, no, too late. You missed it. You missed the deadline. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God. I was like, this was just insane. And, even with the skydiving accident, that just came out of left field for me because I was not expecting that. I was just, I was like, I know George was gonna set Annie up somehow, but I was not expecting how that went down, and my mouth literally dropped to the ground, like
Yeah.
just as much as Annie dropped to the ground, just like
Yeah.
just the same
Yeah.
way. I'm like,
Yeah. It is funny. It is the real visual spectacle, and it definitely is the punchline of that scene for sure.
yeah,
And it's funny. Yeah.
and the gas leak where he's like, Mikey said there was a gas leak. Really, Mikey's the only thing you're thinking about in this sentence.
Yeah.
I literally was cracking up at this, like the whole movie, just with these little one-liners, and it's just so
I'm really glad.
yeah,
Yeah, it's awesome that you're laughing and you find the humor in it because, it is supposed to be funny. You are supposed to laugh at the absurdity of it all. And yet, I felt like at least, being in the theater and like seeing it with audiences, like you could hear people chuckling under their breath, right? But they just didn't know whether it was like socially acceptable to laugh at like the absolute absurdity. And my takeaway for everybody is like, yes, it's okay to laugh at the absurdity of life. Life is just inherently funny. We don't have long on this planet, so we might as well just laugh.
yeah, exactly. So, how long did shooting take on this film, and were there any challenges that you faced during production?
We had a tight 15 days because it was a pretty low budget movie. We did not want to spend a penny over, so we were just like 15 days. There weren't actually any major challenges on set. I think everything was very smooth. All the departments were really communicating in ways that were very effective. I trust my department heads to have incredible leadership and they understand the workflow in the organization, but we had a lot of good prep time. So that really obviously helped the workflow. But I will say there were moments that were exhausting more so than difficult, in the sense that when we were doing blood, there was a lot of cleanup having to do between takes and, all that kind of like
Yeah,
stuff that nobody really wants to do, which is, wiping up the blood from the floor to make sure the continuity is good. So that's probably our biggest challenge.
that's awesome. Well, overall, this was a hilarious movie. I like I said before, we need more movies like this because we don't really get them anymore. We get the dark comedies. This was a dark comedy, but this was an absurd dark comedy, and I love these type of movies because like you said, it's okay to laugh, especially in the world we're in today. Um, let the fans know, when is this movie? When can we expect this movie? When's it coming out?
Movie's coming out next week on Feb 25th, and it is going to be on all VOD platforms. So you can watch it on Amazon, Apple, Google Play, Fandango, in the comfort of your home. And I'm excited for everybody to watch it. Really support small indie films, support upcoming creators, support upcoming filmmakers. We worked from the ground up to get this done, and it takes an audience to really be able to elevate all of these incredible emerging filmmakers to be able to make more original films and to keep
Great.
the industry moving.
Yes, I agree. We need more indie talent out there, and they got a voice, and this is living proof of that. And so finally with that, what's next for you that you can talk about? Is there any new projects in the works for you?
Ooh, I can't technically talk about it, but there's something that could be shooting this summer. Who
Okay.
knows?
Okay. Fingers
But
crossed.
you will see more action comedies from me, more dark comedies. And there's always a demand for horror. I'm always hearing like make a horror, make a horror. It's like the demand is always high. It's
Well,
also
you can
feasible and
always
doable.
yeah, you can always make it absurd horror comedy. They're out there. I mean,
Yeah, they're out
Canada's
there.
Canada's done quite a bit of those, so I know that.
Yes, that's
So
true.
yeah, so
Yeah. So
let's
maybe, but
yeah,
I definitely would like to stay in the action comedy, almost maybe sci-fi, absurd, dark comedy space.
awesome. Everyone, check out Trigger Happy on February 25th. This is a hysterical, absurd, dark comedy. It is so funny. Great cast. And Tiffany, thank you so much again for taking the time to talk about it.
Yeah, this is awesome to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. You take care and you stay awesome, and can't wait to see what's next from you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.